Imagine if we lived in a world in which human beings chose to have animals exploited and slaughtered for profit and pleasure in the total absence of necessity, and commonly justified doing so by claiming that plants have feelings too. Of course, it's hard to imagine anyone saying something so silly, and I know you would never do that. But let's just suspend our disbelief for a bit and pretend that people actually do say this. Okay, a lot of people say this. Using alleged plant sentience to justify non-veganism is such a common tactic that it's affectionately known in the vegan community as plants though. So responding to this and kind of tackling this rationale, it starts with kind of Captain Obvious territory and then dandelions out to many factors that may be less obvious. And I hope in this video that I'm about to cover some factors that maybe you've never considered before, even if you have considered this topic. 1. Plants don't have feelings, actually. If I had $1 for every time someone replied to me in a comment thread with this Vice article, I'd be rich by now. Yet, apparently unbeknownst to these passionate plants' rights activists, this article is actually refuting the very point they're trying to make. In this article, the author of the book What a Plant Knows, which spawned a million articles claiming plants are cognizant, says, quote, "Plants are not cognizant." So here's the deal. Physiological plant perception, or the ability of plants to sense and respond to the environment and adjust accordingly, is science. Paranormal plant perception, on the other hand, or the paranormal idea that plants are sentient and that they experience pain and fear, is pseudoscience. Plants lack nervous systems. Quite simply, when people use plants have feelings too to justify animal exploitation and slaughter, they're conflating physiological plant perception, science, with paranormal plant perception, pseudoscience. We could just leave it at that, but additional absurdities remain. 2. If plants did have feelings, it would have far greater implications for people who actually, eat herbivores. For fun, let's operate without any of the previous context and pretend that plants are truly sentient and have feelings. As a non-vegan, I'm sure this horrifies you, since you're of course fully aware that you are actually eating the flesh and bodily fluids of mostly or entirely plant eaters. Of course, you know that animal products are just secondhand plants, and that as a non-vegan, you eat far more plants as cycled through animals than you would if you just ate plants directly, like vegans do. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by explaining the science of trophic levels to you. You surely remember from science class that eating an omnivorous diet makes you a secondary consumer of plants, while eating an herbivorous diet makes one a primary consumer, giving vegans a far lighter footprint by the basic laws of biophysics, along with some good old common sense. Farming animals for human consumption is responsible for the most losses of all harvested crops on Earth due to this very process. Farmed animals consume 5 times as many crops as all human beings on the planet. Since they're all slaughtered early into their lifespans, they are an unnaturally young mix of growing creatures with high metabolisms who need plenty of food, plants, to stay alive before we kill them, to get the nutrients they got from plants. Perhaps calling a vegan diet a plant-based diet is confusing, because non-vegan diets actually require far more plants. Maybe we should call non-vegan diets plant-debased diets, due to their egregiously magnified use of plants. 3. Unlike plants, animals actually do have feelings. If you've ever been around one, it should come as no surprise. They have feelings. They seek pleasure and avoid pain. If for some reason you doubt animal sentience, possibly because you want to eat their mutilated bodies with a clean conscience, take a look at the scientific consensus on the matter in the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness. This prominent international group of scientists agree that animals are conscious and therefore cognizant. So if you agree with the science that animals are sentient and go so far as to claim that plants are sentient too, you would obviously go vegan to dramatically minimize your own contribution to both plant and animal suffering. But believe it or not, we haven't even reached the most ludicrous aspect of this reasoning. 4. Plants have feelings too would shatter the current status quo of selective compassion. If plants were sentient beings, and if that fact justified animal exploitation, it would challenge the dominant non-vegan culture's selective avoidance of animal exploitation. What do I mean by that? Well, vegans avoid exploiting all animals, regardless of their species, and they make other choices. We do this consistently, as far as is practical and possible, in a world hell-bent on exploiting animals. Non-vegans, on the other hand, just avoid exploiting some animals, mostly pets and so-called wildlife. When it comes to protecting these animals, they are just as passionate and vocal, if not more so, than many vegans. For proof, just take a look at the comment section of any news story in which an animal, such as a dog, is abused. But simultaneously, they seek out and actually pay for the exploitation and slaughter of the types of animals that are used for their current preferences for food, fashion, entertainment, etc. But they do avoid some animal exploitation. So when making a moral equivalency between plants and animals, what sorry vegans implies is that there has been no need for vegans to avoid animal exploitation all along, because plants have feelings too. So we can harm plants and animals alike without moral repercussion. But then why wouldn't this extend to animals like dogs, cats, giraffes, and penguins too? When gleefully delivering the news to vegans that plants have feelings too, wouldn't you also say, for example, sorry dog lovers, here dog lovers have been avoiding the exploitation of dogs and making other choices for their profit, pleasure, and convenience, when all along plants have had feelings too. By this logic, shouldn't dog lovers start exploiting dogs for food and entertainment? Just like vegans should apparently start exploiting cows and chickens because plants have feelings too? Why would vegans be the ones to suddenly start exploiting just a specific group of animals as dictated by the dominant culture's preference and the status quo, but not other groups of animals? Sorry vegans, plants have feelings too seems to be asking for more morally consistent behavior. It's like you're sharing some really radical information that should create a paradigm shift, but your intention is to maintain the status quo exactly as is. 5. The implications of plants having feelings would extend far beyond our diets. The alleged pain inflicted on plants would not stop at what we eat, but would change the way we live in many other ways. We'd need to stop walking on grass. Firemen would need to rescue houseplants just as they would the family pet, etc. Vegans sarcastically refer to people using the plants though rationale as plants' rights activists, knowing that they would never actually align their actions with what they're claiming to believe here. Privilege resists examination. Plants have feelings too is perhaps the ultimate resistance to examining our sense of entitlement to feed on and otherwise exploit animal bodies, and to completely absolve ourselves of responsibility for what this means for animals, people, and planet. So no, plants don't have feelings. Do you?